Hey everybody, John Lorden here. Welcome to another episode of BrainScratch Searchlight for September 20th, 2017. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today's case is a bit of a recent one. This lady has gone missing only within the past few weeks. I think we're coming up on it's going to be just about 3 weeks in a couple days. So definitely a lot of cause for concern. I know her family is extremely worried. There's a lot of press kicking around, but there's not a ton of detail. But there are some very big questions that I have after reviewing all this information. I'll be sure to share with you guys towards the end of this video. So with that being said, let's get started on the case of Julia Jacobson and see if there's something that we can do to help her family out in terms of finding her. Starting here with a missing poster for Julia. This is hosted on Search for Julia at facebook.com. That is the kind of official family site for this search. I believe it's being run by her sister. Here we see on the poster several photos of her. Unfortunately, the biggest photo, she's wearing sunglasses, which makes it a little tough, but you can see we got a good shot of her face down here from back when she was in the Army, which is just another part of how tragic this is. This is someone that served our country that has now gone missing under some pretty mysterious circumstances. Julia Jacobson, 37, is a U.S. Army veteran who was last seen at the 7-Eleven convenience store on Arrow Drive in the Mission Hills area of San Diego, California, around 6:30 a.m. on Saturday, September 2nd, 2017. She actually worked for 7-Eleven corporate. From what I understand, she was a corporate real estate person, probably helping them secure locations for new stores and things of that nature, corporate offices and stuff like that. She was driving a white Chevy Equinox and had her Wheaton Terrier mix Boogie with her. She last contacted a friend around 9:30 p.m. that evening and said she was heading to Big Bear. Her car was discovered abandoned on the morning of September 7th at 2600 Monroe Avenue in North Park, a half mile from her home in Normal Heights. We're already getting right into one of the extremely odd questions in this case. And this poster, actually here, we get to it here. There was a confirmed sighting of her in Ontario, California on Saturday, September 2nd, 2017. I believe that sighting is from around 8 p.m. when she's in Ontario. But really odd that we have her supposedly taking this trip. There is some question about the text message. Her family's not sure if they should believe that it's actually her that texted or not. But then somehow her vehicle makes it back almost to her home, only about a half mile away from her home. But there's no sight of Julia and also no sight of her dog Boogie. So very curious about what's going on here. They include contact information. I will have that in the description box below in case you have any information that can help out on this case. Please use that contact information. I know some people get nervous about calling that type of information in. This is more important than that. If you have anything that can help with this case, please get it into authorities so they can act on it. Here is another picture that I found of Julia and her dog Boogie. I just wanted to show this to you because it's a pretty good picture of both of their faces, so we know who we're looking for here. And over back on her Facebook page, Search for Julia. Here we have a little bit of a synopsis that was put up just about a day ago. For our new followers, here's a summary of what we know regarding Julia's disappearance. She was last seen on September 2nd at 7-Eleven on Arrow Drive in San Diego at 6:30 a.m. She was wearing shorts and a tank top, and her dog Boogie, a Wheaton Terrier, was also in her vehicle with her. She got gas and bought a banana and water. Her car is a 2017 Chevy Equinox, which was subsequently found a half mile from her house on September 7th with its windows rolled down, keys in it, and unlocked. Her family does not live in this area, so it took her family a couple of days to really realize that something was wrong. You know, the last message they kind of hear, actually, I think it was a friend from hers, if I recall correctly, is that she's kind of going off on this weekend trip. But there was a normal cause of action where she was calling her father on a daily basis. Her mother had just passed away the previous February. So her dad was kind of the one that noted, hey, something must be up because I haven't heard from her in several days, and called her sister. I believe her sister is the one that actually called in the missing persons report. And that didn't happen until September 6th. So within a day, they found her vehicle. If I recall correctly, I think they used the OnStar system that was built into the vehicle to actually track it down. But that's very strange. Once they find it, its windows are rolled down. The keys are in it. I believe they're actually in the ignition. The doors are unlocked. I've seen some other information that her purse might be in there. We'll review that as well. Since the missing persons report was filed with the San Diego Police Department, we learned that she was also seen in Ontario, California around 8 on September 2nd. I believe that's 8 p.m. Later that same evening, she texted a friend saying Palm Springs today, Big Bear tomorrow. Both Julia and Boogie are still missing. If you have information regarding their whereabouts, please call the San Diego Police Department's missing person unit, #search for Julia. And of course, they have the poster that we've already reviewed there. So, all right, so let's move into some news articles on this case and learn some more. This is from 10news.com. Looks like it is an ABC affiliate. Missing Army vet spotted on Serra Mesa surveillance footage. Here we get a shot of her on the footage so you can see what she's wearing. Looks like a gray tank top and maybe some khaki shorts or a skirt, but I believe they're shorts. And here we get a little information about the text messages and some suspicions from one of her brothers. She has two brothers and a sister, from what I understand. Saturday night around 9:30, she sent a text message to a friend saying she was in Palm Springs, but her brother said the way the texts were written makes him suspicious. He said his sister is normally long-winded, but the text simply said Palm Springs today, Big Bear tomorrow. The text also said she was with a friend, but it's unclear who. And that is probably a good segue into the first of my questions about what is going on with this trip that she's taking. So here's a map. This is the 7-Eleven where they got her on surveillance camera. We know that she was there at 6 a.m. And here is Ontario in California. This is 108 miles from that 7-Eleven. Takes you nearly 2 hours to drive it if you take the shortest route. If you take the scenic route, it takes you almost 2 hours right on the nose to get up to Ontario. The issue I have there is we really don't have a good reason of understanding why she went to Ontario in the first place. I've seen from some other reports that she was meeting her ex-husband that day, that she spoke to him that day. He said that they met in the morning, and I believe he's one of the last people to have seen her face to face. So, of course, that raises some initial suspicions, but police say that they have been talking to the ex-husband. He has been cooperating, and that he's basically not considered a person of interest in this case right now. He lives in Arizona. So what I'm curious about is maybe he possibly flew into Ontario. There's an airport there. Maybe he was there for some other business or something like that. And maybe she went there to meet with him. It's odd to me that she would go to Ontario, because if her destination was truly Palm Springs, where she said she was later that night, the drive from Ontario to Palm Springs is 1 hour and 10 minutes. So if you couple that up with this nearly 2 hour drive, she's doing definitely 3 hours, a little bit more than 3 hours of driving. However, if she would have gone direct from that 7-Eleven where we saw that she was spotted right to Palm Springs, that's only 2 hours of driving. So she tacked on an extra hour of driving. Plus, we know that she's in Ontario for some period of time. Like I said, I believe that footage from Ontario is from 8 p.m. So somehow she's spending the majority of the day in Ontario before she heads to Palm Springs. And then supposedly from Palm Springs, she's supposed to go on to Big Bear. Let me just add that into this whole mix so we get a sense of that as well, which to me is a bit odd if you're going to do this whole trip. I mean, if she would have flipped those days around, she would have saved herself a considerable amount of driving. If she really did go to Palm Springs on Saturday and was planning to go to Big Bear at some point the next day, she is now backtracking about halfway back to Ontario and then cutting from there north through the San Bernardino National Forest, where if she flip-flopped those, she could have gone from Ontario straight to Big Bear, would have been a shorter drive. She wouldn't have been backtracking a whole lot, then come back down and then headed from there to Palm Springs, putting her essentially closer from Palm Springs to getting her back home. So admittedly, not everyone plans their travel the same way I do. Maybe there was other considerations here that we don't know about where this made sense. But I'm pretty suspicious just looking at this path of travel and these destinations that we're hearing about, hearing that there is someone else that she's with, but we haven't heard from the family who that person might be. Is there potentially another boyfriend in this story, or someone that she was just meeting and dating, something along those lines? I don't know. She had just secured a new position where she was going to be moving to Texas. So I don't know if she would have necessarily taken that job if she had any type of serious relationship going on out here in the Southern California area. So many questions on this case, and unfortunately just not a ton of great detail. Heading over to patch.com, this is from just about a week after she was missing. The search continues Saturday for an Army veteran from San Diego who went missing over the Labor Day weekend. Concerned friends and community volunteers plan to canvass the neighborhood around Julia Jacobson's North Park home. While I'm glad that they're doing that, I'm extremely suspicious of, did she even get back into that area? I don't know if something happened to her. I don't know that it really happened to her close to home. It seems to me that whatever did happen to her, it might have been someone that knew her, and perhaps they were trying to get her vehicle back close to her home so they could throw off suspicion about, where something actually happened to her. I'm really not sure. Detectives have spoken with Jacobson's ex-husband, who lives in Arizona, and found him cooperative. One little wrinkle there is I saw an interview with her brother, and her brother, who happens to be a private investigator himself. In one interview in particular, he seemed to be angling on the ex-husband or someone in her life that she was having a relationship with and having some problems with. He mentioned that she had actually gone out and bought a weapon. She bought herself a gun, that he was with her for that purchase. He mentioned that she bought some home camera system and had that installed as well. Is that potentially part of the reason why the person didn't want to drop her vehicle off at her home? Were they worried about being picked up by some cameras that she had installed if they knew her personally enough to know that she had done that? I'm not sure, but so many questions in this case. Casey Jacobson of North Dakota described the circumstances of her siblings' disappearance as puzzling. That is an understatement. She said her sister, a corporate real estate broker for 7-Eleven, would never willingly leave her company car unsecured with the ignition key and a company gas card inside. Apparently her purse was in there, but it looks like her purse was emptied out. Now, I don't understand. There's no real clear definition about what was in there versus what they think was removed from it. But according to this information, we know that at least the company gas card was left inside it. I'm almost wondering if this is someone that did do something to her and then took the car back. I'm wondering if they were trying to get it intentionally stolen by leaving the windows down, leaving the key in the ignition. Maybe they were hoping that some thieves would come upon it. Maybe someone that thought, hey, I'll take this thing for a joyride. Something along those lines. It just seems really odd to me. You've got the doors unlocked, the windows down, the keys in the ignition. You've got a purse in there. You have a gas card in there. This thing is just screaming the way that the vehicle was left. It's screaming to me, take this vehicle and go drive it off somewhere else, which would have honestly... This vehicle is the biggest piece of evidence we have so far. If someone did steal that vehicle and took it somewhere, we wouldn't even have this part of the story, and there'd be really little to review in this. Is it possible? I think it's too coincidental to think that someone took this car from somewhere else and then it just happened to wind up a half mile away from where she was living. That just seems outside of the realm. It seems far too coincidental. I don't think that that's what's going on. I think someone wanted that vehicle back in that area, but then to be taken from there and maybe disposed of or, given to a chop shop or something. I don't know. Jacobson is 5'7", roughly 150-pound white woman with brown eyes, long blonde hair, and a tattoo on her hip of a crab holding a flower. I haven't seen any pictures of the tattoo. A surveillance photo shows that she was wearing shorts and flip-flops on the day that she vanished. Heading over to NBC San Diego, who's been doing some coverage on this. Unfortunately, it's good that they're raising exposure to it, but it's really, there's just not a lot of detail going on here, and they're really not digging in and creating any kind of compelling timeline or anything like that, but at least they're raising exposure. Julia's family told NBC7 the car was found with its windows rolled down at different levels, the keys in the ignition. Julia's black handbag was found inside, unzipped, and with hardly anything in it. The siblings gathered with family and friends for a vigil at Mission Bay Park Sunday evening. I believe that's this past Sunday. And from what I've seen in other reports, I think there was actually 4 different vigils for her across the country, back where she used to live, and then, of course, where she was living currently. A lot of people that seem to care about Julia here. Jumping to another article at NBC San Diego, we get some insight from one of her brothers about what he's thinking, the one that's a private investigator. The brother of a retired United States Army captain who vanished last weekend in San Diego said he sees the red flags in his sister's case and fears a grim outcome. John Jacobson, who lives in North Dakota, flew to San Diego this week to search for his younger sister. John, who has worked as a private investigator in criminal cases for the past 20 years, said he can't help but fear the worst in his sister's case. Over the decades, he has worked on nearly 60 homicide cases. As an investigator, I know the statistics. I know how most of the time this story ends. I can see all the red flags. John said it is extremely out of character for Julia to abruptly lose contact with her family, especially their nearly 80-year-old father, whom she calls every single day. Those daily calls to her dad stopped the day before she vanished. I know how Julia's personality is. She is very much a military officer. She's very regimented, very detailed. She doesn't wear the uniform anymore, but she still has the personality of a military officer. John said he last spoke with Julia about 2 weeks ago when she called to get his advice on a new job she had been offered in San Antonio, Texas. Julia had decided to accept the position and was thrilled to be moving there where her best friend from childhood lives. And it seems like she was really looking for kind of a reboot. She had just gone through a divorce after having a relationship that seemed to have some issues. Seemed like she was getting out of California and just going for a fresh start, getting back to what was important to her, living close to a friend, and of course, taking her dog that she loves so much with her. But that also raises a question about, would she really have taken this trip in the first place with the intent of being gone for that entire holiday weekend? She had a lot of personal affairs that she was going to have to take care of. I believe she was planning on giving notice when she got back to work the following week. So you're talking about a pretty fixed time frame. You've got to pack, you've got to move. There's a lot of things that you have to handle. It just raises a question. Someone that is so regimented, former military like this, is she really not going to take the opportunity of having a 3-day weekend to start getting her move in order so that she can, move halfway across the country? I think it's a good question. John has been told by police that Julia's ex-husband met up with her on the morning of September 2nd. By 8 p.m. that day, she was in Ontario, California, about 120 miles north of San Diego County. So there's the confirmation that the footage from Ontario, at least according to NBC San Diego, was actually from 8 p.m. We know that the 7-Eleven footage from her in Mission Hills was from about 6 or 6:30 a.m. We've got a big, long day in the middle of that. Her ex-husband is saying that he met up with her on the morning of September 2nd. I really wish that we had that location so we could know where they met. Was he somewhere along this drive, or was he the destination in Ontario, which would give us some understanding about why she was adding those miles in a little bit of an off direction from her final destination if Palm Springs was really her final destination. That's another big question here. If you consider that someone else could have sent those text messages saying that I'm going to Palm Springs and then, tomorrow I'm going to Big Bear, that covers a lot of very different type of terrain in California, a lot of open space. If that was someone that had done something to her and they sent that text, that could have been coverage for them in terms of them going to place her somewhere. And that is just, you can't just search that area. I mean, you've got literally mountains and hills and a lake in the Big Bear area. And in Palm Springs, you've got literally desert all around there. So many different opportunities and places that you could hide something between those two locations. But then there's that question that keeps nagging at me. How did that car get back? And it's really a shame that unfortunately, police, the missing persons report just came in a little late because we don't know how long that car was sitting there. That car could have been there from September 3rd, or it could have wound up back there several days in between there. We just really don't know. And according to the LA Times, police are now asking for help in the search for the missing Army veteran. And this is where you guys come into it, my awesome brain scratchers. If you have friends that live in the Southern California area, actually South California, San Diego area, Ontario, but keep in mind, those are not necessarily close to each other. And then I'd say even all the way east out to Palm Springs, someone in Palm Springs might have seen something that could be a part of this case. Big Bear, I don't know if she actually ever got to Big Bear because the communication stops after she is supposedly in Palm Springs with that text at 9:30. If she was caught on camera at 8 p.m. in Ontario, that's just enough time for her to have driven from Ontario to Palm Springs. So it's feasible that she could have been in the Palm Springs area. So if you have friends in that area, please send them this video. Please help them be aware of this case as well. If you saw anything of interest, particularly over Labor Day weekend, something that looked just a little odd or a little out of place, please call it into the authorities and have them check it out, because there is a missing piece to this case, and someone out there, I truly believe someone out there has the answer to where that missing piece is. Ultimately, I feel terrible for this family. They've already faced such a big loss early this year. You can tell these siblings really care about their sister. They want to bring her home alive and safe, of course, with her dog, Boogie. But at this point, we're getting 3 weeks away from it. You heard from her brother what he thinks. He knows how these cases go down. He's seen the red flags. I just want to remind the family out there, we've also seen cases where people do come back alive and healthy from experiences that do go on sometimes for several weeks or even several months. So please don't give up hope. Please hold on to that. Outside of that, if you want to help them, of course, they're racking up travel expenses. They are staying in the area looking for her. There is a GoFundMe that has been opened. It is gofundme.com/searchingforjulia. According to GoFundMe, this campaign is now trending. They're looking to raise $20,000 to help cover their expenses. They are now at $13,480. Julia's father, sister, and 2 brothers live in the Midwest and have traveled to San Diego to find her. This fund is to help the Jacobsons cover travel expenses while they search. It may also be used to boost the search by hiring a private investigator or buying ads to get the word out faster and farther. And I know that I've heard that there's already at least one billboard that's going up in that area. And I hope that the family... I hope that we can help them by raising exposure to this case here on the channel. I only saw one other YouTube video specifically about this Julia Jacobson. It's a little bit of a common name, and it was a video that really just had like 3 pictures and a little bit of information. So I'm hoping that we can share a bit more info here. And on behalf of myself and my amazing Patreon supporters, we are also going to be donating to this GoFundMe campaign to help Julia's family stay in that area and hopefully find their sister and bring her back with her dog. It's just a terrible case. I really feel for them, and I wish them all the best in terms of finding Julia and finding out what happened to her. And if there's some justice that has to be served after that, I'm hoping that all that is part of a chain that they can just start pulling on and pull all that into their lives, because obviously it seems like something happened to her. It seems very suspicious. I will keep my eyes and ears open on this case. If we do get some additional details, I will do an update with you guys. Hopefully we'll hear some good news at some point that I can share with you guys on this channel also. But to the Jacobson family, just know that you've got my heart, and I know the heart of many of my viewers with you guys on this search. Take care, everyone. Thank you for spending some time with me here on Searchlight. I appreciate each and every one of you. And remember, please share this in the areas that I mentioned. We need to raise exposure to this case and help this family find their answers. Take care, and I'll see you back here tomorrow on the Lord and Arts channel.